and he was going to give us instructions on putting aside our differences and beginning to search for a way that we can find to resolve our differences by using our mind. But what we're seeing now is that time period of conflict and constant struggle that was affecting our people and also causing the death of people living in this particular area. Then the time came when a remarkable turn of events occurred that had a lasting and everlasting impact on the warring factions. This will be our scene 2. Excuse me, scene 3. And this is the journey of the peacemaker. A man was born on the on the north shore of Lake Ontario. He was born among the Huron people. He was born to a virgin mother. And his birth brought about a very unusual set of circumstances. He began to work to fashion a white stone canoe with which he was going to travel across the lakes. And he was going to look on the south shore of the lake for those settlements of people that were living here, the area where he knew there was great conflict. Today, Darwin is playing our peacemaker. The very first person that our peacemaker encountered when he came to these shores was a woman, and that woman we know as Tecumseh. Tecumseh we also refer to as the Mother of Nations. She was the first to embrace this message of peace, this message of power, this message of righteousness, this message that all people deserve justice, and any people that do not have justice will always be striving for that justice. The message was also one of healthy body and healthy mind. And the message was that we have a power of a good mind. We can use our mind to resolve our differences. And when the peacemaker extended this message to the Mother of Nations, she was like a neutral place, a place where the warring factions stopped at her home to have a meal. But when they were in her home, there was no fighting. But they left her home and they went on to fight again. And so in a way, she was a part of that conflict that was ongoing. But the Mother of Nations was a very important figure. Now, the next person that our peacemaker encountered was Hayawentha. Some call him in the English Hiawatha. He was living along a trail at the time. He was born into the Onondaga Nation. He eventually becomes a title within the Mohawk Nation, becomes a leader of the Mohawk people. But our peacemaker had to go from nation to nation extending this message. He took the time to speak to the Mohawk people who were conflicted. They were of two minds. Some of them wanted to embrace peace. Some of them did not want to embrace peace. He moved on to the Oneida after he had brought the Mohawk into the fold. And then he tried to move on. The Oneidas were ready for it. He tried to move on to the Onondagas. But among the Onondagas there lived a man that we refer to today as Tanadaho. This was a man who did not want peace. This was a man who had very evil ways. He was a wizard. He could kill people with simply his mind. He could bring an end to people's lives simply by screaming. He could drop birds from the air. He could change the course of the lake. And this was the man who most needed to be convinced of this message. And so it took the three. It took Hiawatha, it took the peacemaker, and it took Tecumseh working together. And it is said that the Mother of Nations is the one who actually combed something like snake-like creatures from his hair and began to straighten out the misshapen parts of his body and to bring him into this healthier state of mind. And something very unique happened then. Rather than take this man who was so much an embodiment of evil and drive him away, rather what they did was they gave him the responsibility of chairing our Grand Council. They gave him the responsibility of maintaining the central fire. They gave him the responsibility of maintaining the tree of peace, the great white pine with the four roots that grow in the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. The warriors stepped forward and they buried their weapons beneath the tree of peace so that those springs that flow beneath ground might carry away these weapons and bring to an end this conflict that was ongoing and constant. And so now our peacemaker has advanced his message to the people. He's brought an end to the killing for the time. And our ceremonies, our very important ceremonies, began to continue. And we've established this relationship we have with the natural world, that relationship of giving thanks for all living things, for the earth, our mother, for the waters that surround us, for the four-leggeds that run about, for the medicine plants that grow near the earth, for those birds whose songs we hear first thing in the morning, for the trees, the forest, the woods, for the foods that the Creator has given us, the corn, the beans, and the squash, for the warm and gentle breezes we feel on our face this morning. We know the wind is powerful indeed, but we give thanks for it. We know we also must give thanks for the thunder beings, because this is when rain is going to come and replenish the wells and bring back to life the plant. Our elder brother, the sun, rose this morning. We give thanks for that. Our grandmother moon will light the nighttime sky, and all about her are our stars, and they have a role to play. So this is the beginning of that time period when we began to observe those ceremonies.